So not too long ago, I think about like a week ago, we got some more updates to when it comes to Survival Hunter going into the War Within. And the changes are kind of aimed towards making Survival Hunter a lot better when it comes to the offensive rotation. Which spells do you have? What kind of rotation do you do? And it's just night and day difference between Dragonflight Hunter and the War Within Survival Hunter. So what I want to do in this video is just kind of go over how does Dragonflight Hunter play right now versus how is it going to be playing in the War Within. I will of course leave timestamps below because I know some people inside this video just want to see the offensive changes that we just got, but there's a lot of people sitting out there thinking, like Survival Hunter's been this sort of like uncool kitten class that no one wanted to play with to becoming this thing that, now everyone is kind of looking at it thinking, is that something we should be picking up now? Because it's starting to look really good, So I wanted to do a complete overview, at least when it comes to utility, defensive talents, as well as take a look at the new offensive playstyle, because I think the playstyle is kind of what turned off a lot of people from Dragonflight Survival Hunter, because let's be honest, it's not really the best thing ever. It's a niche spec that people play because it has some cool elements to it, but it's not really the perfect spec, in Dragonflight. But it's looking really good in the War Within. And let's go ahead and talk about what has changed. So the first thing I want to talk about here is utility, because when you think of a hunter, you think, well, that's a class that has like a ton of utility. You have traps, you have stuns, you have knockbacks, you can root people, like you have a lot of things, right? Something that people may not know is when you go inside the talent tree, a lot of the choices that we have is, do you want this or do you want this? You can't have both. And I think that's really the key thing when it comes to utility about Hunter that makes it feel so bad when we, on top of these choices of utility, also have really poor defensives. Because the utility is kind of what needs to make up for the poor defensives that we have. And because they also just kind of leaves us with, oh, we have to choose something, but you have to, throw this one talent away because you picked the other one, just feels a little bit bad. So to kind of give an example here, we do always have Freezing Trap. That is just a iconic hunter talent. So you just throw it and then you freeze trap something. It's not really a talent. It's just more of a core part of your class. As you level up, you get this spell here, right? Then we do also have our Tar Trap, which is actually a talent that you pick in here. So as you can see, we have Tar Trap. And if you pick another talent below, then you root people. And that is another very basic hunter ability that we just kind of have. And this is really where all the utility that we pretty much always have as a hunter kind of like stops, because the rest of our utility is what we have to pick between two. So if you go into the talent tree, just to kind of show you what I mean, if I want to have a stun, I have to pick this intimidation stun over here. But that means that I'm giving up my knockback. And I'm the type of person who loves going into world PvP, battlegrounds, and I knock people off cliffs and have fun with that. Like, to be honest, like high explosive trap is the fun talent here. Intimidation is the necessary talent. And you have to pick this one if you want to play at a professional level. But if you want to have fun, then you have to pick high explosive trap. So in reality here, you're not picking which one would you like, you're kind of picking which one do you not want to have. And it's kind of going back to the old talent tree that we had back in, let's say, like BFA, Shadowlands, where you had to like, pick between these three talents each row you went down. And you didn't really feel like you picked a talent, you felt like you gave up two other talents, which felt really bad. Hunter feels the same way, which is a big difference between Hunter that I've noticed and all the other classes in the game. I know every person who plays another class can come say, oh, it feels the same way to be, but utility as a hunter is such a essential part of staying alive, and it just feels really bad when you cannot have what you need to stay alive. So, I don't know, to me it feels a little bit different as a hunter. The other thing I want to point out here is that we do also have another piece of utility where you can choose to have Scatter Shot or Binding Shot. This is also between a Incapacitate or a Stun. So you might be thinking, oh, so you can get High Explosive Trap and a Stun. Well, the thing is, if you play PvP like I do, you have to pick Scatter Shot. It's just kind of like if you do not pick this one, like you need to know what you're doing if you do not pick Scatter Shot. As a survival hunter, you have certain spells like Explosive Shot, Death Chakram, shrapnel bomb, like these can actually be thrown on your opponent while they are inside scattershot and not break them out of scattershot. Every other ability will break them out of it, but these 3 will not do it unless they crit. So this one is kind of like a crucial opener thing that you need to have. If you do not use this one, it's kind of like you don't know what you're really doing. So we can't really pick Binding Shot as a survival hunter. I'm not saying as any other hunter spec, because Beastmaster, Marksmanship, they probably do a lot better choosing Binding Shot in my opinion. But Scattershot as a survival hunter is just kind of essential, again, meaning that you're giving up another stun. So you have to kind of pick and choose here, and it feels really bad as a hunter, at least as a survival hunter, that you just cannot have the traps that you need to actually feel like you can do something against another player. I know it's kind of like a meme that, oh, hunter is easy, you know, but that's not really when it comes to PvP. Like in PvP, the skill ceiling for hunter is incredibly high, especially as a survival hunter, because you just don't really perform that well against, at least if you fight more than one person within 3 minutes. You don't really perform that well unless you have a healer behind you. And it's kind of like the warrior situation there where, oh, warriors are super good in PvP, but only if you have a healer. As a survival hunter, we don't have a lot of self-healing. We have one healing spell if you do not pick the PvP talent called Mending Bandage, which is also one that you can only kind of use in like unique situations. So utility is super important, and right now in Dragonflight, almost half of our utility is just thrown away because we can't pick it. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be defensive talents, because defensives are a big part of playing a class, because you got to stay alive, especially when it comes to delves going into the War Within. Like, that is solo content, and if you play a spec that cannot stay alive, or a class in this case here that cannot stay alive, then you will not do very well in delves. It's kind of like the Torghast situation. Like some classes like Rogue, they struggle quite a bit because it was very, I guess, like Rogue just didn't really synergize together with Torghast and Shadowlands. So it's kind of the same situation here they're trying to avoid, right? Because a hunter, if they cannot stay alive, then how are you supposed to finish a delve? The same thing goes for PvP, where defensive talents are very important, because if you want to fight for a longer period of time in PvP without a healer, let's say you do Battlegrounds or World PvP, then you can't really stay alive if you don't have the spells for it. So what do we actually have as a hunter? Well, if you play PvP, we do have a couple of PvP talents that do help you a little bit when it comes to survivability. We do have Survival Tactics, which is mandatory as a PvP player. Basically, this one goes in and makes Feign Death actually reduce damage that you take by 90% for 3 seconds. This is extremely powerful, and this is probably our best defensive, honestly, as a hunter, which makes it a little bit weird because it's a mandatory PvP talent. So what is PvEers gonna do? Like, it's like, you know, like they should have it too, but I guess it's just for PvPers. Then we do also have Mending Bandage, which is a channeled ability. It clears bleeds, poisons, and diseases, and heals you for 30% of your health over 6 seconds. But if you get attacked, whether being from a direct attack or a dot damage, then this one breaks on damage. So it's kind of like you need to know when to use this one, and I don't know, like it makes it so that you can't really, as a casual player, play Survival Hunter and use this talent. Like, you need to know a little bit more in depth about what kind of dots do you have on you, how do you kite away properly to use this, or can you actually against certain classes use this one mid-fight to clear bleeds or poisons and so forth. Like, let's say against a rogue or feral druid, this would be really good to press just mid-fight, because even though you don't heal yourself, you clear all that dot damage from you. So like, it does have some effects there, but again, it's a PvP talent. So let's go and talk about for PvEers, because for you guys, Feign Death is not going to do much other than just make you leave combat. You do have Camouflage, which is, again, because we don't really have that much utility, it's more or less just going to be an opener in PvP fights, or a little bit of extra healing if you are a PvE player, or maybe you can sneak around some mobs, you know, like it can do some things, but again, it breaks on damage, which makes it really hard to pull off in a PvP fight. So it's more or less an opener, really, like to kind of heal up between fights. Then we do also have Roar of Sacrifice, which again, let's be honest here, is more of a PvP talent. PvP players will love Roar of Sacrifice because, let's say I fight a mage, well, a lot of their damage is crit damage, and what does Roar of Sacrifice do? Well, it takes all the crit damage that you receive and put that damage onto your pet instead. So the pet is sacrificing its health to not make crit damage hit you, right? And it's one of those weird things where, like, it does work in PvE content, but it's more valuable in PvP content, right? That's just how it is. I've seen some PvE players, they actually talk about changing Roar of Sacrifice or maybe giving them a different option. Like, they did actually do that here. You can take less AoE damage, but it's like a 6% AoE effect damage reduction, which is nothing in comparison to like how valuable this is to PvP players if you pick Roar of Sacrifice. So it's kind of like, it's like this really bad choice over here. So even PvE players might even go for Roar of Sacrifice, like, because this one is so bad. Then we do also have 3 very iconic Hunter spells. We have Acceleration, which is your only healing spell as a PvE Hunter player. And then we also have Aspect of the Turtle, which gives you a shield that reflects damage and makes you take 30% reduced damage in case you have any dots on you. Basically like a kind of like a paladin bubble, but not really, right? And then we do also have Survival of the Fittest, which is going to reduce the damage that you take for a certain period of time. So these are very important to stay alive. But the bad thing is that Acceleration doesn't really come off cooldown that fast, at least as it is right now. An Aspect of the Turtle and Survival of the Fittest are one of those type of spells that when you press it, you better press it at the right time, because it's on a 3-minute cooldown, a whopping 3-minute cooldown each. So if you press them, you don't have them for 3 minutes. So it feels really bad to press them, especially if you do it at the wrong time. Whereas, let's say other classes like a druid, they have like 1-minute defensives and constant, like they can go in and heal themselves in bear form, like, with frenzied regeneration. Hunters, they just feel so bad when it comes to defensives compared to other classes out there. Because we don't have any healing, besides this Acceleration. So in order to get this working, you kind of have to like do hacks to play Hunter, because then you can pick like a trinket that gives you a bigger health pool, and then you can pick a pet that gives you more maximum health that then synergizes very well by using Acceleration after pressing those. So you have a bigger health pool, so you heal even more when you press Acceleration. Like, it's kind of, you have to do like these hacks to get Hunter working, and it's any other class can do the same. Any other class can pick a trinket to increase the health pool and then heal themselves to heal more. Like, but Hunters are forced to do so if you want a solo fight as a Hunter. So it feels so bad with defensives as a Hunter. Like, they're amazing defensives, but let's be honest here, the cooldown kills it for us. Like, when you press them, it doesn't feel good to press them. And that's really the biggest issue with Hunter. I do also want to mention here that when it comes to talents to like modify these different spells that I just talked about, we can go in and choose something called Natural Mending, which requires 2 talent points to get the full effect of, which gives you every 12 focus you spend, it reduces the cooldown of Acceleration by 1 second, which is okay. But it gets better in the War Within. So we'll talk more about that once we get into the beta in, after this section here. Then we do also have another talent called Rejuvenating Wind, which also gives you a little bit more healing when you press Acceleration. Basically, this one increases your maximum health, as well as heal you for, in this case, 16% of your maximum health over 8 seconds when you press Acceleration. So the weird thing here is that this talent is not connected at all to Natural Mending. It's kind of like, oh, you want this extra Natural Mending passive effects? Well, then you have to pick Survival of the Fittest, and then you have to pick a modifier for Survival of the Fittest, and then you can go down and pick this Rejuvenating Wind, which is like, I mean, you're gonna do it anyways, but it just feels like a weird place to put it. Like, why not just put it like right below Acceleration up here, or Natural Mending? Because it fits better. And did I mention it takes 2 talent points to get the full effect of? So 4 talent points in total to get Natural Mending and Rejuvenating Wind at full effect. That is a lot for very minimal amount of what you actually get from spending talents on this. So like, again, defensives are not very good. We do also have Born to be Wild, which has also been reworked in the War Within, by the way. Right now, it takes also a whopping 2 talent points to get the full effect of 20% reduced cooldown reduction, which basically means for when it comes to survival of the fittest and aspect of the turtle, it gives you 20-second reduction on cooldown. I think really the reason you would actually be getting Born to be Wild might be to get a cooldown reduction of aspect of the eagle, so you can get a little bit more range damage during your fights, because then it actually becomes more or less like a 1-minute cooldown. But again, it takes 2 talent points, and as it is right now, you kind of have to go down this path here and pick Serpent Sting. I know I may have changed the talents a little bit from the beginning of this video, because I was kind of experimenting a little bit when it came to Born to be Wild, because I want to see how it feels like to actually pick Born to be Wild instead of Serpent Sting. Even though like we really want to have this thing down here to give us extra damage, it's just kind of like this right now for me as I'm testing things out, even though it's not really the optimal choice. So defensives as a hunter, not very good. They feel horrible to press, and they're very just lackluster. Even when we press them, it's like, oh, well, there went my defensives, so what do I do now? I better use my traps. Oh, wait, I don't have any traps. Okay, well, what do we do then? Better have a pocket healer. So the offensive rotation, let's go and talk about that one for a second. Let me just go ahead and... actually, no, let's not do that, because I want to show you with Serpent Sting. Like, this is the optimal decision here, right? So... my talents are set up for PvP, by the way. This doesn't really affect the video because I'm just trying to show people how Hunter is, whether it being PvP or PvE. But right now, we have Serpent Sting, and we have Death Chakram and Flanking Strike, which in the War Within, you're going to notice when we get into the beta, are going to get removed. We don't have these spells anymore. So right now, all this button bloat that we have, all these spells that we constantly, like, we have like... what is like 4 different spells we gotta press in our opener just to like get the opener out? Like, it just feels bad and weird. Like maybe even like 5 spells if you press Serpent Sting as well. So we have a lot of button bloats, is what I'm trying to say, as a survival hunter in Dragonflight. It's something like where the opener would be like, at least in PvP, like we use Scatter Shot because it does not break on damage when it comes to Explosive Shot, Death Chakram, and Shrapnel Bomb. So if I use, you know, Scatter Shot, Explosive Shot, Death Chakram, Bomb, might apply, you know, and now you get into normal rotation. So now you can press a cooldown like Coordinated Assault. You cannot press both your cooldowns at the same time. Let's actually talk about that for a second, because that is pretty bad. So Coordinated Assault is basically going to buff 2 of your spells. Wildfire Bombs and Kill Shot. 2 very important spells to press, which means that when you use Coordinated Assault, if you do not press these 2 spells when they're up, you're an idiot, because this is like your damage, right? Which basically means that stuff like Mongoose Bite and Kill Command are not really getting pressed during this specific offensive cooldown. So you have to make sure you use Kill Shot and Shrapnel Bomb, or Wildfire Bomb as they're also called if you talent into that. What about the other cooldown? Well, this one goes in and buffs your Mongoose Bite. Okay, so if you press these 2 at the same time, basically, you need to focus on doing 2 separate things at the same time. It's like looking left and right at the same time. And it just does not feel good at all. It's one of those things that has been changed in the War Within to a big improvement, because this right here does not feel good. So, you know, we have all these button bloats, you know, we have cooldowns that doesn't synergize that well together. And I really think, like, besides that, we do also have the fact that we have a lot of different procs happening, which are just like left and right procs that you have to like focus differently on at all times, and it doesn't really feel that good. So not only do you have button bloat, you have cooldowns that don't match with each other, and all your different procs are just kind of like left and right, and does not really like, it's like you have to focus on 3 things at the same time, and it just does not feel good. You feel like you're constantly messing up your rotation, even though you might be doing it perfectly, because you cannot do a perfect rotation, so to speak, because there's so many things you need to do at the same time, and you can't multitask. You can't, because of all the global cooldowns, because each time you press a spell, there's going to be like a global cooldown until you can press the next spell. Because of all that combined, the rotation feels horrible. in Dragonflight. I do not blame people for not playing Survival Hunter in Dragonflight. It does not feel good to play. With that said, let's go ahead and look at the War Within Survival Hunter. Okay, so we got the War Within beta Survival Hunter, which has received a bunch of changes to it, both with the first rework, but also now with the rework when it comes to your offensive rotation. So what you're going to notice here already is the lack of spells on my spell bar. Well, actually, you're going to notice that there's a lack of spells down here in the center, because that is where I typically put my offensive spells. But Serpent Sting, which I actually had to place inside my utilities in Dragonflight, because there's no room for it inside my offensive spell location, has now been removed. And instead, we now have more utility. So basically, let's go ahead and talk about utility first and do it the same way as we did with Dragonflight. So utility, defensives, and then offensive rotation. Again, there's timestamps below if you want to skip forward to the offensive part, but let's go ahead and talk about utility first here. So when it comes to utility, we still have Freezing Trap. And we can still go inside our talent tree and pick Tar Trap, which is kind of iconic. You need to have that one. So again, we have Tar Trap. But what about all the other ones that we talked about? We had to like pick between them, and basically it meant that you felt like you had to sacrifice certain talents. Well, if we go down here, you can see that, oh, our Intimidation Stun is all by itself. Which means that we can now pick a stun without having to pick either a stun or knockback, which is fun for Will PvP. Instead, our knockback has been moved down to the bottom here, where you can choose High Explosive Trap. Or, for PvE players, and this is a fun one, you can choose a Knock Up, which is basically going to interrupt everyone that you're throwing it at. So a knockback is not really good for dungeons, because then you aggro other mobs and stuff, so it's not really something dungeon people choose. Instead, you got this one over here, Implosive Trap, which is a great addition to the game for PvE gameplay. So we can have both. We can have a stun, we can have a knockback. Awesome. That was the first win. The next win I'm going to show you here is that we also have Scattershot over here, which is right below Intimidation. And this one allows you to pick between Scattershot and Bursting Shot, which, fun fact for non-hunter players, is actually a talent that you could only pick as a marksmanship hunter inside Dragonflight. So this has now become a every hunter spec sort of thing now, so we can all choose it if we want to. Of course, we would be giving up Scattershot, which goes back to the feeling of, okay, so you're actually giving up one thing, but it's okay because we now still get access to these other spells over here. Because Binding Shot that you had to give up to get Scattershot is now over here. So you can actually pick it. So now you can actually get a second stun as a utility, as a hunter, which feels really good. So we have a stun, we have an incapacitate, we have another stun, and then we also have a knockback. With our root, with our freezing trap, it feels incredible. Okay, so just to demonstrate, we have freezing trap, we have explosive trap, we have binding shot, we have scatter shots, we have tar trap, and we have another stun. All of this as a hunter. It feels so good to have almost twice as many pieces of utility when you get into a fight, because utility is what keeps a hunter alive. So I'm so glad to see that we're actually getting it now. So with the utility out of the way, let's talk about defensives, because this is where the first rework really made me want to play Survival Hunter going into the War Within. So basically, Feign Death, Camouflage, and Roar of Sacrifice work the exact same way as they do in Dragonflight. If you want to listen to how exactly they work, then you can skip back to the Dragonflight section of this video. But let's talk about Acceleration, Aspect of the Turtle, and Survival of the Fittest, because these are massively different. So if we were to go inside the talent tree here, you're going to notice something that I did talk about, the fact that Natural Mending and Rejuvenating Wind were kind of like you had to pick 2 talent points for each of them, which meant you had to spend 4 in total, and then they were kind of like spread apart, so they weren't even like connected inside the talent tree. But now you get Natural Mending as the first thing up here. So now it's 1 talent point to get a 1 second reduction every 10 focus you spend, which is better than it is in Dragonflight. So that, you know, back then it was 2 talent points to get a 12 focus reduction. So the higher number, the worse it is, right? So now it's only every 10 focus that you get 1 second reduction, which is good. Then we do also get Rejuvenating Wind, which is down here. But now, instead of a 16% healing, it is now 20% healing of your maximum health. So this one is just kind of like both of these are improvements. It makes you heal more. It makes it so you can heal more frequently because it's going to go off cooldown a little bit faster. So in general, like these are very good improvements to Acceleration, which is your healing spell. On top of that, let's talk about the big elephant in the room. Survival of the Fittest. Now this one is going to change how you play Survival Hunter, because not only do we now have 2 charges if you pick the talent below it, but you also get Lone Survivor, which is what we talked about, like you had to pick between 2 of them, which means that now you have a 30-second reduction to the cooldown, as well as it lasting 2 seconds longer. And it also goes in and actually reduces the cooldown of your interrupt, which is kind of neat. But then you might be asking me, well, Daniel, you said you had 2 options. One was to give it, exactly what we have here. But then instead, we could also pick to get a additional 20% damage reduction, making it 40%, right? Because it was 20% baseline and then 40% with the additional talent. Well, they actually got rid of that talent. And instead, as a baseline, it is now 30% damage reduction. So just by having Survival of the Fittest, it is now 10% extra damage reduction, but you get 2 charges of it with this talent below here, which is overall an improvement. And did I mention it is a 1.5 minute cooldown now when you pick this Lone Survivor talent? Because it's no longer 3 minute baseline, it is 2 minute baseline, making it when you pick Lone Survivor 1.5 minutes. So like Survival of the Fittest is unrecognizable almost from the Dragonflight version. This is the spell you're going to be using to survive as a survival hunter more frequently than Acceleration, in my opinion. And just to mention it, when it comes to hero talents, we can choose something called Pack Leader, which has a talent called Den Recovery, which passively heals you for 20% of your maximum health over 4 seconds when you press either Survival of the Fittest or Aspect of the Turtle, which means you get more healing just by pressing a defensive. So this right here means that not only are we getting a crap ton of more defensives to like reduce damage taken, we get more charges of them, but we also get more healing as we press them. Win, win, win. And just to mention it here, we do also have Aspect of the Turtle. Now this one hasn't really changed that much, but because we now have Born to be Wild being just a 1 talent point, in order to get a 30-second reduction to the cooldown of Aspect of the Turtle, Aspect of the Cheetah, and Aspect of the Eagle, it is now a really good talent to pick. Because now it means that we get a 2.5 minute cooldown on Aspect of the Turtle, as well as Aspect of the Cheetah, which was also a 3 minute cooldown in Dragonflight. But more importantly, it is going to reduce the cooldown of Aspect of the Eagle from 1.5 minutes to 1 minute. And what does that mean? That means that you get more ranged offensive capabilities, so you don't actually have to get close to your opponent to attack them. So Aspect of the Eagle being pretty much something you can press every minute is super good. So already here, you can start hearing, okay, so Survival Hunter is actually looking really good, like in the War Within. But let's go ahead and talk about that offensive rotation that I mentioned, because that has been completely reworked, like this week or something, like some days ago. So basically, we still have explosive shots, we still have Mongoose Bite, we still have kill commands and wildfire bombs. If again, you pick the talent down here called Wildfire Infusion, otherwise it's called Shrapnel Bomb, right? So let's try and split this into digestible pieces of how and why this is so big that we're getting these offensive changes. First of all, button bloat has been completely reduced. We don't have to press Serpent Sting anymore. That has become a passive now. We no longer have to press Death Chakram, which is another spell. That has been completely removed from the talent tree over here. And instead, the damage has gone into other abilities instead. So again, 1 less button to worry about. And we no longer have Flanking Strike, which was our gap closer. So you might be thinking, well, okay, well, that was actually a pretty good spell. Well, that has actually become a passive now. So down here you can see we get it as a passive, which means that every 3rd kill command, so if I use kill command 1, 2, 3, now it becomes a Flanking Strike, in the exact same slot as where we have kill command. So now again, 1, 2, gotta get it off again, 3, and then we have flanking strike. So it's kind of like this, kind of like a natural way of you to actually close the gap and use Mongoose Bite, which is, it feels a lot better. So it actually gives you like a really fun incentive to now press kill command, which has been a complaint, by the way, that people thought kill command was just an annoying filler. They hated pressing it, but now it gives you something fun to work for because you want that flanking strike. It's fun to use. So this one is massively improved as well. Now, I do think it's very important to talk about the changes to Mongoose Bite and Shrapnel Bomb, or Wildfire Bomb as it's called. But let's go ahead and take the offensive cooldowns first, because these have been changed massively as well. So now they no longer buff certain abilities, which means that you don't have to press certain spells when you press these cooldowns here. Because again, like I said, in the Dragonflight version, when you press Spearhead, you had to use Mongoose Bite. When you press Coordinated Assault, you had to use Wildfire Bombs or Kill Shot. And you had to do that, and it felt bad. You could not press them at the same time. Now they have been changed. Coordinated Assault gives you just a flat out 20% increased damage, which just feels really good. Like, you can just use it for more damage. It does also increase the chances of kill command resetting, which is just part of your core rotation now. Like, you just have 4 buttons to press, so that's perfectly fine. That just gives you more damage to press and more flanking strikes, which is super fun, at least after the rework. So this one is just really fun to press now. And notice that it's a 1-minute cooldown. It says down in the corner there, because I have a certain talent that makes it 1-minute cooldown. And it's just fun. You have it up constantly as you're fighting. The second thing is Spearhead. Now, Spearhead is also a 1-minute cooldown because I have this talent down below here picked. But this one has also been changed, so now it no longer buffs Mongoose Bite, but it just simply gives you a 30% increased crit chance against your target for 10 seconds. That's it. Like, both of these spells, of course, do also deal some damage when you press them, but it's more about the effect that comes from them, right? So now you get 30% increased crit chance with 20% increased damage, so you can just press both of these at the same time if you want to have a high burst, and then you just do your rotation. That's it. You don't have to worry about constant procs from Kill Shot or from Wildfire Bombs. You just do your rotation. It's so simple. It's not overcomplicated. It's not bloated. It's just use your cooldowns, use your rotation. It's that simple now. And it just feels so different. That being said, let's talk about the 2 most iconic offensive spells that you will be pressing a lot of the time. Mongoose Bite. Now, this one has been a sore point in the Dragonflight version and previous versions as well. Basically, we didn't talk about this one in the Dragonflight version. Mongoose Bite in the previous version had a passive effect called Mongoose Fury, which we still have, by the way. But the way that it worked in the previous expansion is that you had to stack it 5 times to get the maximum amount of benefit from Mongoose Fury. Basically, it increases your damage by, I think, 15% every time you have 1 stack, and it could stack 5 times. But it did also have a cooldown, which did not reset whenever you used Mongoose Bite. So when you got that 20-second cooldown, so you started stacking up, you got them 5 times, and because of the global cooldowns as well, by the time you had 5 stacks, you had very little time to get that damage out, which stressed people out, because as a survival hunter, you die very easily in Dragonflight. And if you had to force yourself to get in close to melee combat and get attacked constantly to get that extra damage out when you had 5 stacks, then you basically killed yourself because you would die. You had no defenses, right? So it didn't really feel that good with Mongoose Fury. It's like one of those things that just kind of stressed you out. But now, in the War Within, it's 3 stacks, but only 10 seconds. And now you might be saying, well, how is that different? So now you just have even less time to get those 3 stacks up. Well, it resets every time now that we Mongoose Fury or Mongoose Bite on our target. So let's go ahead and stack up. So we have 1, 2, 3. And notice how the cooldown just resets. So 9 seconds, 8, 7, 6, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 9. Okay, so you can just keep the stack up with the buff up, which is so much better than it is in Dragonflight. Now you actually want to have the stack up, and it feels fun to maintain it. So even though we have this like very simple rotation now with Survival Hunter going into the War Within, where like they gutted a bunch of our spells, so we have less to press, well, we still have a really fun gameplay element to now maintain. Like you have to maintain that Mongoose Fury as you're fighting to get the maximum amount of damage out. But it's actually fun now. It's not like this stress factor where you have to like, oh no, there's like the 20 seconds are up now, so we have to reapply the 5 stacks. Like, that was stressful, but now it's a lot better. On top of that, let's go ahead and talk about how Wildfire Infusion now works for your bombs. Because bombs are a big part of Survival Hunter, right? And the way that it worked in Dragonflight is that when we use a Wildfire bomb, it had one of 3 effects. Either it increased your damage from Mongoose Bite, or it would go in and apply a Serpent Sting debuff on the opponent with an additional effect. And it would also have a third bomb that basically made it so that your kill command could just be used spammable, like constantly, as long as the opponent had that debuff on them. So you had like these 3 different effects, and you had to kind of like, when you press the bomb, kind of like just watch what you applied to the opponent, and then, oh, okay, so that means I gotta focus on this thing now, like kill command, because that's the kill command debuff. Which again did not synergize very well with your cooldowns, because what if I press Coordinated Assault at the same time? Well, do I then want a kill command, or do I want to use my bombs, my kill shot? Like, what is my rotation now? Like, it's just like it all. The rotation of Hunter in Dragonflight feels like it's fighting itself. It doesn't want you to do good damage. Like, it just felt so bad. So how does Wildfire Infusion now work? Well, it's actually much more simple. Now it goes in and says that Mongoose Bite and Raptor Strike has a 10% chance to reset kill commands cooldown. So basically it gives you more kill commands. So again, we can get those fun flanking strikes, right? It also says the kill command reduces the cooldown of Wildfire Bomb by half a second. Okay, so we had like a really awesome synergized thing going on here where like these 3 spells that you have, Mongoose Bite, Kill Command, and Wildfire Bomb, kind of like synergize super well together in a fight. Like where they reset each other, like the cooldowns, and increases like chances of resetting certain spells, and it just feels so good because it harmonizes the way that you do your rotation, which is much better. There's none of that passive effect now, which is, thank God for that, because that was just so annoying that you had to like keep watching out. Like, it was one of those things where people who played Survival Hunter professionally would say, oh, by the way, there's these 3 effects here, just ignore them because you're going to be like having your head in so many other places trying to get your damage out. So just ignore the effects. If you have the time for it, or if you manage to actually see the effect, you can maybe like do something about it, like if you really have the mental capacity to do so. But if not, ignore it. They said the same thing about Mongoose Bite or Mongoose Fury stacks, by the way. Just ignore it because it's going to get you killed. So like there was all these issues here, but now bombs are completely different inside the War Within. But let's talk about the last really fun thing about Survival Hunter rotation, because we do also have something that has kind of been like a mandatory talent in Dragonflight, like which was Explosive Shot. This one was all the way down at the bottom as an optional thing you could pick in Dragonflight, but they realized now that, oh, okay, so it became mandatory and people love pressing it. Let's make it a core part of our rotation then. Yes! Okay. So now when we have Explosive Shots and we use it on people, we do also have some talents over here affecting Explosive Shot quite a bit. The more important one that I want to mention here, if I can just find it. So we have something here called Quick Shots, right? Which makes it so that when you cast Kill Command, you have a 30% chance to fire an arcane shot at your target at 100% normal value, which is just a passive. So it just fires off an arcane shot, right? But if you pick below here, you also every 3 quick shots, so every 3 arcane shots, right? Quick shot is replaced with a explosive shot at 100% effectiveness, which means that you're just throwing out explosive shots, which feels incredible. We have constant procs of explosive shots just kind of happening. I can see if I can actually get it off here, because sometimes you'll notice that we're actually using 3 explosive shots at the same time at our target, which feels really good. By the way, in Dragonflight, there was kind of this weird thing where if you had an explosive shot at your opponent, and then you applied another one, which you could as a marksmanship hunter, they kind of like canceled each other out, which was super weird. Like the explosion at the end there just didn't really happen for the second one. But now they stack, so that if you have a explosive shot on your target already and you use a second one, then it just blows up immediately, which is super fun. So let's go ahead and try and get these 3 stacks that I was talking about. So, okay, that was 1 arcane shot. That was good. Again, I'm just kind of focusing on showing you the thing here. So we got 1 of them. 2. So building up an explosive shot. You can see it up here. We have 2 stacks. There we go. There's the 3rd one. So now we have it. Okay, so we have a... Where is it? Sulfur Line Pocket. Your next arcane shot is replaced with a explosive shot. Let's actually go and get explosive shot off cooldown here. So now it's spent, right? So I keep pressing, just trying to get the last one off. Come on. Explosive shot is still on cooldown. Again, this would look differently in a fight, right? There we go. Okay, so it got shut off. Boom. Passively, by the way. On top of that, we do also have a talent. Let me just see if I can find it. On top of that, if you go inside the talent tree, you can also see we have something called Grenade Juggler. This one basically gives it so that Wildfire Bomb has a 25% chance to also cast an explosive shot at your target at 100% effectiveness. So on top of our kill command applying a explosive shot after a certain amount of time, this one allows for your grenade to have an even higher chance of actually casting explosive shot. So if I were to just kind of do that, let's go ahead and just throw one, and just kind of hope that we're getting an explosive shot at some point. Again, it's 25%, right? So it might take like 4 throws before we statistically get an explosive shot. There we go, and there we go. Okay, so 3rd time's the charm. 3rd grenade gave us a explosive shot. During your damage rotation, just by pressing your normal spells, you're constantly firing off explosive shots. And that's not all. I can't actually remember where this is from, but we do actually have... Yes, okay, so over here, Coordinated Assault. When Coordinated Assault ends, your next 2 explosive shots are free and have no cooldown. So let's go and use Coordinated Assault here, just to spend it. And again, notice that I don't have to press kill shot anymore. It's just a flat out 20% increased damage. Feels incredible, okay? So let's go ahead and watch it end here. It has 6 seconds left. Let's use Explosive Shot, by the way, before it ends. So now it ends, right? Oh, I get a buff. I can use Explosive Shot, Explosive Shot, Explosive Shot. So I can fire 3 at the same time if I wanted to. So if you spend Explosive Shot before it goes off cooldown, you can press Explosive Shot 3 more times. It's like Survival Hunter has now become a grenadier type of spec where you just throw grenades. Oh, okay, so there's a free bomb getting thrown using explosive shot. Oh, you use kill command. Oh, here's another explosive shot. Wait, your buff ended? Here's 3 free explosive shots you can also use at the same time if you want to. So it's just like a constant like explosion maniac happening at your opponent while your rotation has just been so simplified and still giving you a mechanic of keeping up Mongoose Fury, which is just so much fun. So Survival Hunter in the War Within is so amazing. And it may seem a little bit complex with everything I've said right now, but I want people to keep in mind, all of this stuff is passive. Okay, there's nothing you need to be watching out for, except if you spend your Coordinated Assault and then you get those 3 explosive shots. Of course, that's one thing you have to watch out for. But other than that, just press these spells on cooldown. We do also have another buff, by the way, that I have not mentioned yet. But this one is more of a... I guess you shouldn't be too keen on like watching out for it. You just need to like change the rotation to fit it. But we have something called Tip of the Spear, which basically just makes so that kill command increases the damage of your next other spell by 15%, stacking 3 times. Basically just means when you press kill command, it's going to buff the attack of the next spell. So you should be weaving a little bit when it comes to your rotation. So your rotation will look something like this. Maybe a kill command to buff my explosive shots, because that is getting spent. Kill command, bomb. Kill command, bomb. Now it's turned into a flanking strike, Mongoose Bite. Kill command, mongoose bite. Kill command, mongoose bite. Kill command. Oh, we have a bomb. Flanking strike. Mongoose bite. Mongoose bite. Because again, we have a couple of stacks. Kill command. Mongoose bite. Oh, kill command. Bomb. Explosive shot. Mongoose bite. Kill command. Mongoose bite. Flanking strike. Explosive shot. Mongoose bite. Kill command. Mongoose bite. It's super simple. But again, you have to keep an eye out for buffs, which gives it some level of gameplay. And this was, by the way, without pressing any cooldowns. Like in reality, it would probably look something like this. You would go in and press Spearhead, which, by the way, now no longer is a gap closer, which is good, seeing that we have these changes to it not being connected to Mongoose Bite anymore. So in reality, when I had to open up on a person, I would just go ahead and use my cooldowns. Boom, boom, explosive shots, kill command, bomb, kill command, bomb. I should have used kill command before explosive shot, by the way, I know. So kill command, mongoose bite, kill command, bomb, kill command. Now my coordinated assault is going to be off cooldown, so oh, kill command, explosive shots, kill command, explosive shots, kill command, explosive shot, because you have 3 of them, right, when it ends. And then again, kill command, bomb, flanking strike, bomb. It's a super simple rotation. Like, it's not as bloated as it is in Dragonflight. It's just so much better now. So our hero talent pack leader is just now, you know, really good for self-healing, solo content, solo PvP, that kind of thing. I do also want to point out here, it is something people talk about. Sentinel, which, by the way, got a new picture, which looks amazing, by the way. Sentinel was kind of like a mandatory talent you had to pick because it dealt a lot more damage than Pack Leader did. They heavily nerfed Sentinel. Okay, so it's a little bit more okay to pick Pack Leader now, which I don't even know if Sentinel is better than Pack Leader now. But they did nerf it quite a bit to make Pack Leader a viable option, right? You're gonna have to look up the current meta guide for which hero talent to pick to know whether or not to pick either or, right? But Pack Leader, self-healing, this is the way to go, okay? So all of that basically means that we now have a Survival Hunter, which to me personally is the perfect class in the game, or the perfect spec in the game. I have been kind of like an altoholic for the longest time. I don't think I'll ever swap to other classes as frequently as I've done in the past. It's gonna be to just play them as like side characters, but not as my main character anymore. Because this one is just so perfect. Like, I've been looking for a class my entire time playing this game that was this perfect. And it just suits me so well. We'll see how I do when it comes to picking other races as Survival Hunter. But, you know, at least when it comes to like picking a spec that I want to play, Survival Hunter is my thing now. Like, I will be playing Survival Hunter. I have no doubts about it. Oh, that's so nice. They're playing cards. Survival Hunter, awesome changes. As you can see with your own eyes, it looks amazing. It feels good to play. Do you think this is something that's a lot better than Dragonflight? I personally think that there's not a single worse thing about Survival Hunter right now compared to Dragonflight. I'd actually say Dragonflight version is just probably the worst design spec in the game. It's just not good. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.